Did you pray today? I can get down on some gang. Did you pray to get down on the gang?
Welcome back. I got another video for you today. Here going with another aspect of how Jesus is directly linked to divinity, God being the same being, creator of the universe, the same God that the Jews worship. I actually took one of these notes to show that that these things that's happening always cross-linked to it. I'm sorry, I'm like fixing these cables right now, being pretty annoying, but nevertheless, I got another one for you. How can we link Jesus being the same God in the Old Testament? And with my recent notes that I actually made, I just kind of had this epiphany, right? Thankfully, because of my father showed me something that was very insightful, right? So methodical. I love it, and you're definitely gonna enjoy this one. So for this one, it's actually going to the adulterous woman. Okay, basically the notion of what did Jesus write in the sand. And so there's a couple of theories as to what it could be. Some say that he listed out their names and their specific sense. You got various assumptions, okay, but we're gonna go with what the Bible demonstrate before him. So one of those things that I can prove that the person of the Son and the person of the Father are the same one being is that Jews and the Christians, well, more so Christians, right? Because God put the Jewish people to the side. He's building up his church, and then he'll redeem the Israelites later. Nevertheless, whose commandments, right? Who is the one who basically made these rules of the universe and for us to follow, to basically heed to? And we see a couple of things when it comes to Revelation and Exodus, right? We're given these commandments, right, from both of these individuals. So if we were to assume that position of those that are outside of the faith or have some weird amalgamation of Christianity, how do you reconcile these things where God gave commandments, as in the person of the Father, and Son Jesus giving commandments? Who do we follow? Because when it's talking about commandments of God, and all of a sudden they're linked to the same thing, that means that whatever the Father's Son, it's also a credit to the Son, and also by extension the Holy Spirit. Since we do believe in a triune being, not like three beings, it's three persons, one being. It is always evident by his nature. And so when it comes to Exodus 20 and Revelation 22, who is the commandments of God speaking to? Especially in Revelation, right? John is receiving this vision. All of a sudden the focal point is on Jesus' commandments, right? The commandments of God. So there's like a direct link to it, but can we do more than that? Of course, because if we look in Exodus 22, from Exodus 20 all the way to 32, actually, God is giving the groundwork for the laws that Moses is going to teach and is going to be expanded on furthermore. And in there, God is actually writing the tablets with his finger. And so if you look back to the adulterous woman that's making a mention in the New Testament, you actually see Jesus doing the same thing in nature. So it's actually safe to say, if you link these two things together, Jesus is actually reenacting what he did at Mount Sinai when he was giving the law to Moses and therefore his people. Because a couple of things that happen there is that they're trying to, a group of people, right, caught this adulterous woman in the act. And now per Levitical law, or rather said in Exodus, it states that if somebody is caught in adultery, you have to bring both the man and the woman. And so in order to cast proper judgment or to condemn them, you need both parties involved. However, in this circumstance, they're only about the woman. And so what's going on here is that when they're trying to fulfill the law or like pretend to actually enact it, they're not actually doing properly, which is a sin itself. Because if you're trying to do something for the law and any detail is out of place, you're actually not doing it, so, and you are actually sinning yourself. We see that in different instances where people entered the holy temple without the blood. They got drunk and they burned different incense. I mean, so many instances of the Old Testament of people messing up to some degree, and they actually paid the cost of it because they actually sinned before the Lord. Thankfully, we have a God that shows mercy. So even if we do something was not intended to, those are just basically instances of, I would say, like a prime example of anything that is God says is no. There are consequences of it, and it's going to show that there are sins. Basic. Now, going back to what they're trying to do with this adulterous woman is trying to basically stone her to death without having the male. So they're not actually fulfilling the law as much as they pretend to be. And so the indication of Jesus writing down is actually what the law demands. So it would make sense that what Jesus was writing without lack of words, because if he says yes or no, he's kind of confined into a place that it's damn if you say it and damn if you don't. Okay, that no, you shouldn't do so, and so he's fighting against Moses' law. And then if he says yes, then obviously like it's not showing his reflective nature of merciful. So what he does is actually uses the situation against the people that are trying to enacting unlawfully. And so when he writes the law of talking about if a woman or somebody is caught in the act of adultery, the man and the woman both commit the same sins, even though that they're respective. They just basically each to their own committed the exact same sin, and so they both have to be stoned to death, not just the woman. And so when he wrote this, now the peoples that were seeking the blood had this realization, like, oh, like now since the law is present with us, we can't go against it, because if they were to do so, that just gives further implication that they're making the situation that they thought they were going to take advantage and disprove God is not being used against them, and they're going to be held even more reprehensible for if they continue further their actions. So that's why when Jesus says, for those that have not yet sinned, cast the first stone, you don't have to assume if they did sins. Obviously, this is a proof text that a lot of Christians use to show that nobody's perfect and they could be sanctified, but because they have sinned at one point in their lives, even them forgiveness, we're all sinners by definition. And so each one, starting from the oldest to the youngest, they had that realization. Not only I cannot insert reasonably doubt, but I got caught literally in this circumstance that I tried to enact the law without actually properly doing so, unlawfully. And so they left one by one. Of course, we know the scenario as to why it was only the adulterous woman and Jesus, because even though Jesus had that judgment and had that right to condemn, he chose to show forgiveness. When God says some things and he enacts it, he means it. And so since the person wasn't there still, he couldn't also do the same thing. But at the end of the day, even though he set up the criteria to basically stone this woman, he chose to show mercy. And it's very impactful, because after that he finishes with just a simple statement: go and sin no more. Because that's actually what we do with our reconciliation. We've been given this mercy, and so we have received this gift of pardoning, right? Forgiveness of sins, which is what I talked about in the last video before this one. The woman gets to experience something, and so as a Christian, it really resonates with me, more specifically, right? Maybe some of you can resonate with this, that when you go about sin, it changes your dynamic with it, because rather than being comforted and living in it and making excuses, whatever it is, your relationship to sin, now we have this different perspective, because even though I was found in a situation where God could have judged me, condemned me in his own right, he chose not to. Definitely a transformative thing and an eye-opening experience for this woman, and by extension Christians, when they read this, accepting the Lord and having that hopeful expectation, they can understand, like, I can receive this gift of salvation and go towards a repentant, changing heart that's being provided by the Lord. He gives me a new heart, and I'm able to basically serve him and live for him in a manner that he approves, because he decided to show me that mercy. It becomes much more significant and close to the heart. That shows that not past beyond, including where Jesus validated himself and proved to be God in very interesting manners. Even this one, directly linking what he did in Exodus 20 and 32 all the way to now with this instance where he is repeating the same law that he has given to these same people beforehand and their forefathers. It goes to show that his merciful side and his just side is always present. We see what God wanted to do. Moses steps in and intercedes between what God wanted to punish these people for worshiping the idol, the golden calf, there in 32. And so Moses is actually being a type of Christ there, where he's interceding and he steps in and he's like, hold on, exactly what Moses did is exactly what Jesus did in the New Testament, when it comes to the adulterous woman. And I just love how it constantly goes back into forgiveness.